Well, welcome along to Dhammaloka tonight. These Wednesday nights, we're aiming to sort of set them up to, in a way, give a bit of impetus and help to our care line as well. So just before I even start anything tonight, I would like to just let everybody know, and those that are listening on the internet, that the Buddhist Society care line is open right at the moment, and you can call. I'll just give you the number. On 62704671. 62704671. Now, of course, that number will be, for those at home, will be on the bottom of the screen, scrolling across, and you can call in any time now. There are listeners here at this moment to take your call if you would like to talk about anything and everything and anything at all. So this is a guided meditation that we're planning to do tonight, and we're going to sit until 8 o'clock. But I'll just start off by introducing a little bit of the meditation, and then we'll do some meditation for 30 to 40 minutes or so, and then maybe just finish off at the end. And for those that are here, the idea is really that we'll sort of set ourselves up to just have a cup of tea at the end of the night, and just make the evening a little bit more of a social event, a social occasion. So, with this night kind of focused in and around the care group, I always try to make the talks that I give here centred around the art of listening, and whether or not we're listening to someone else, or indeed whether we're listening to ourselves in meditation. It's really one and the same thing. The idea of what we try to do when we're doing this is to get in touch with the stillness that's there in our mind. And when we can do that, when we can notice the stillness that's there, we can then be certain that we're in the present moment, and we can start to observe and have that self-reflective ability. Because that's certainly one of the main things that happens with meditation. As we learn to meditate and learn to go deeper into it, we really do start to get the idea and start to see this self-reflexive ability of the human mind, how it can be very self-reflective, how we can sort of notice, in a way kind of know what we're thinking about, and know what we're doing, and how we're affecting. We can develop a big sensitivity, a good sensitivity into the present moment, and just get a good idea of who we are. Because, I mean, that might sound quite straightforward. Yes, we know who I'm Dennis, and I know all about Dennis. I've lived with Dennis now for 72 years, and I might think at one level that I know a lot about myself, but then on the other hand, my life is really a big as mystery to me as what it maybe is to anybody else that might be looking on at me, because this world and this life that we're living is in many ways very mysterious. We don't really know too much really about why we do the things that we do, why we think the way that we think, just the way that we get involved with other people, what interests us, what doesn't interest us. A lot of this is very much a mystery, and I trust that you can sort of see that in the same way. I very often, when I'm, because I do a lot of the Buddhist marriages here, and when even in that circumstance where I'm kind of in a very happy and beautiful time in a couple's life, when they're wanting to get married, when they're in love with each other and they're wanting to marry each other, But I very often just look at that too and just think what a mystery that is, just in why these two people choose each other, why I chose my wife, why I wanted to be with her and she indeed with me. All of this is very much a mystery, isn't it? We don't really know too much about how all of this sort of comes about, how it comes into our being, this idea of just why we are the way that we are. But that's one thing about this meditation and the way that this self-reflective ability that we have when we do meditate, we are able to sort of get a little bit more of a handle, a little bit more of an insight into just what this world is and just what we're doing in it and why we are the way that we are. I mean, when we talk about, in Buddhism, we talk about past lives and of course, we can go back to our childhood and look at all of the things that have happened to us over there, and there's many things that we can identify there that have sort of formed or shaped us in the way that we are, our parents, our teachers. We've got a good idea just looking back at the life, mostly, to sort of see why we are the way that we are. But then there's deeper things than that too, isn't there, as we, look back over our past, past before we were born. Just, is our past lives real? This is a question that we can ask. I mean, for me, it's a sort of I don't need to necessarily ask that question now, and mainly because I've been with a lot of people over the years, just in doing hypnosis and helping people understand some of the traumas and so on that they have in their life. Very often you can see how these things go back into past lives, times, well before people were born. So, there's all that, but I mean, how do we really know about all of that? And the answer really comes only mainly when we start to get deep into meditation, when we start to really understand the depth of what we're looking at. And that comes about when we start to understand and see the stillness of our mind. Because in very many ways, the stillness of the mind is really a little bit like looking up at the sky when there's clouds there. If you imagine the clouds are more or less like the day-to-day events of our lives, they're the conditions that come and go. And some days, you don't even know that the sky is blue behind those clouds. But the blue sky is always there. And in the same way, this stillness, this still consciousness, this consciousness of stillness of mind is really there for us all the time to notice and see, no matter what the conditions are that move in front of the whole thing, that move in front of the stillness to distract and to take us away, as we start to get involved in our lives and lose sight of the present moment, just the reality of that present moment. But even saying that, just the reality of the present moment, how do we know that that is true? How do we know that the present moment is real? But all of this is really tied up in what we can see as we start to reflect more deeply into the meditation and start to get an idea of just what that stillness is. And we'll, again, as I'm sort of apt to do when I do these sorts of things, is to this type of guided meditation, I'll certainly work to try and help you get to and be with that stillness during the process of the meditation. But in the end, it's really up to all of us to look at that and understand it well enough so that we can cultivate that stillness and amplify it so that it becomes part of our everyday life. And that is very possible to really know the stillness that's there all of the time as we're living our life. You can live your life and be still with yourself, be present with yourself. And this is a very wonderful thing because the stillness has such wonderful qualities. It has this quality of being able to penetrate into all of the conditions. So no matter what sort of trouble or trauma that you have, the stillness of mind, the still consciousness of mind is really always there to penetrate into the conditions, because the conditions, in a way, as we start to see, they kind of are made up from this consciousness. Perhaps I'll just sort of mention what the Buddha talked about as the 5 aggregates, the 5 aggregations. And he talks about the first aggregation as being physical, this is physical world, the body, everything that we can see that's a subject outside of ourselves, the subjective world that we see. He's talking about all of that, all of what physicists call the baryonic matter of the world. But then he moved from that physicality to the second aggregation that he talked about was feelings. And we all kind of know what feelings are. We're moving now into a mental realm where we're kind of associating feelings maybe with the physical as well. But then he moves on from there into the third aggregation to talk about perception. Perception can be a very tricky thing, because very often each of us will perceive a situation differently than another person might. And it can be very confusing, perception. Sometimes it's, I've certainly seen it in myself. You maybe think that something is a certain way and you find that it's just not that way at all. Perception can sometimes be tricky. But then he moved from there to the fourth aggregation, which is the movement of mind, the way the mind moves. And then the fifth aggregation is consciousness, just pure consciousness. So it's always, I think, handy to come back from the other way. If we start from the fifth and come back, you can sort of see how this can be used, this teaching can be used inside the meditation process, because we can, once we know what that still consciousness is, what that consciousness of mind is, it's a very useful thing for us to have. And it will, as we watch and we understand it, we can start to understand the fourth aggregation, the way that consciousness moves. And of course, once consciousness moves, it's very different than when it's still. It's already starting to become something. As soon as it moves, it becomes, and then the third aggregation, perception, takes over. And then all of a sudden we're kind of got a perception of what this movement is. And then usually after perception is the feelings start to arise, and feelings, they're very, very powerful, very powerful emotions that are inside our bodies. You could even draw a bit of a longer bow with that and sort of look at perceptions maybe as more intellectual, and perhaps the feelings more as the emotional side of it. So the head and the heart, the head and the heart, and the way that all this sort of fits into our mental world. And then as all that sort of takes shape in our mental world, then all of a sudden there's this fusing that takes place to bring about the conditions of our world, the conditions that are there inside our mind and inside it, and then also into our body. But sort of getting to all of that and understanding that really does come from this deeper aspect of meditation and the self-reflection that we can do as we start to look back upon ourselves. A bit like, it's a tricky thing, it's a bit like sort of taking your eye out, your eye turning it back the other way, so the eye looking back inside itself to, just to see what it is that's going on. But I'm going to try and give you an example of that in the meditation now. So we'll do that, and we'll just see where that gets to in perhaps the next half an hour or so, and then maybe we'll just make some observations or comments after that, just to see where we really do get to, and hopefully we can all be on the same page with what we're talking about. So if you'd like to just take a comfortable posture. And The very first part of what I'm going to do here tonight is really a little process of grounding, and because I think this is a very important part too, just understanding that this world that we're in, I mean, what I'm looking out on here is my world. This is Dennis's world that I'm looking out on, and you looking back, this is your world. We are all we all have that personal universe in a way that we're looking out upon. And it's incumbent on all of us to try and understand and make our own, understand our own personal universe, and to make that universe as peaceful as we can make it. So this is is an important thing to understand, because as much as we are all interconnected, is exactly what I'm going to be talking about here with the grounding, as we ground ourselves into this universe, because we are part of this universe. With our bodies are physical bodies. They come from the earth and they go back to the earth. You know, we eat the earth. We're very much part of it. But equally, we're also this earth is part of the whole universe, the whole universal cycle. Everything that's happening in the universe is right there in the present moment, and it's very important for this grounding process to take place. So making your back nice and straight, head pointing to the top of the ceiling. I always like to just have my hands, right hand on the left, just with your thumbs gently touching, and just leaving your fingers kind of light in your hands, just so that you can feel the sensitivity of your fingers and the nerve endings that are there. And then you close your eyes, breathe through your nose, close your mouth. And just find yourself grounded into this seat, into this space. You can start just with putting your attention on your toes. Perhaps see if you can see a particular toe, maybe a little toe, or perhaps even your fourth toe. Can you notice that? If you need to give your feet a little bit of a wiggle, or if you can feel your feet in your socks or on the floor, just put your attention there on your toes. And then just move your attention over the arch of your foot and into your heels. Then moving up from the heels into the ankles and into the lower legs. Just around the shins and the calves. I think you can always too make a distinction there between the hard bone of the shin and the softer muscle of the calves. And then as we move our attention up through the knees, just the way that your knees are bent. And again, if there's any tension there, just allowing it all to relax. Then moving up through the top of your legs, through those thighs and the big thigh muscles, into your bottom, and the way that it's seated. Usually feel the pressure there. And then moving up into your tummy area and around your lower back, around that little bendy part at the base of your spine. And the tummy, especially if you've just eaten, you probably might experience a few gurgles and rumbles. And then moving the attention up into the upper back, around the shoulder blades, and then into the front part of your chest. where there's always rhythms and little movements, rushes. And then you can just notice your arms, how they're hanging down by your sides and bent at the elbows and through the wrists into the hands and the fingers. Because already you're starting to relax. And perhaps around your fingers you might even now be able to feel just that little tingling that comes with the energy that's in the nerves. And then you can move your attention back up to your neck and up into your head area, behind your eyes and around your mouth, where there's also a lot of nerve endings and feeling, tingling. In fact, oftentimes, if you're lucky, in situations like this, your whole body can sometimes feel like it's tingling and relaxed. This is a good sign that your body is relaxing. Your body itself is becoming still and it's able to enjoy just that still relaxation. With that effervescent feeling. The way it almost dances over the outline of your body. And then when you feel your body is nicely relaxed, you can just start to bring your attention inside. Just to notice what it's like just to be still, also inside your mind. Because there's no need to be thinking or to be too concerned about trying to work out even what's being said. You can just forget about all of that really and just allow yourself just to relax. The words that I'm speaking will just come and go. They're just beginnings and endings. And you can just allow your mind to settle and relax and become still. If you would like to, you can. We'll just follow the breath a bit. Just to know where your breath is, whether it's moving in or it's moving out. Just being with that life-giving quality of the breath. No need to do anything, think anything. And then as you're breathing, you will start to notice that there's this still quality of mind. It might manifest itself for you as a sort of maybe a droning sound, or I like to sort of see it as like it's more of an iteration. It is like something that's beginning and ending very fast, so that it just appears as a continuous stream, totally still, because there's no thoughts. You're just relaxed. And you're just starting to come now into the present moment. We're just letting the past go and the future be where it is. So it's just this continuous stream of still consciousness that's just there. It's a very familiar feeling. It's mostly just something that's not noticed. But now that it has been noticed and you can see it, you can just be with it, just turn your full attention towards it. And just notice how your whole mind now, along with your body, is just relaxing more and more deeply. Just as we're becoming one with the present moment. There's no need to worry if a distraction comes or you feel like you're lost. You can just notice that feeling too and just let it be in the stillness. In fact, you can also use situations like that, perhaps even the situation of the sound of my voice as it's beginning and ending in that still stream of consciousness that's there. You start to understand where all these conditions come from. You start to understand what the Buddha meant when he talked about grasping. When he talked about the grasping of desire and the pushing away of aversion. And when the movements of mind go in those directions, we're in the process of creation, creating our lives, creating our personalities. But right here and right now, there is just the stillness as our mind unifies into the present moment, unifies right into the middle way between extremes. It balances between the extremes of the past and the future. And we start to get a little glimpse of how beautiful this is. The beauty of what we're involved in when we do this. You can start to get an appreciation of the truthfulness that's there, the reality, the power, the clarity, but also the healing. The way that we can start to develop this still consciousness of mind. We can start to see that desire is not there, aversion is not there. We notice that our mind is quite content with this peacefulness. It is there in this stillness. And equally our mind is quite balanced between the third and the fourth hindrance, which is restlessness and sloth and torpor. We're quite alert, we're awake, we're aware, present. So the first four of the five hindrances that the Buddha talked about are being subdued. Desire and aversion are balancing to bring about contentment. And restlessness and sloth and torpor are balancing to bring about the right energy into your body and into your mind. And as we start to understand this stillness and to see how the conditions of the mind come and go in it, we can also start to deal with the fifth hindrance of doubt. So we just allow the mind to settle and relax more and more deeply. So I'll just leave you be now for a few moments just to allow yourselves to enjoy and luxuriate in the power and the beauty of this stillness, this presence. Now in a moment I'm going to ring the bell, and I'll do it in the usual 3 times. But as that resonance is penetrating into the room and you're starting to come back into this room, it'd be very good if you can bring the stillness with you. So as your attention starts to concentrate more on the conditions again, see if you can keep the idea of the stillness there. Cultivate that. Cultivate the idea and that feeling, the feeling that you have experienced during this meditation. Cultivate that and try and amplify it so that you can bring it back into this room. So that the ultimate aim here is to really be aware of this stillness all of the time. Because as you can see, it is something that is there all of the time. Stillness is not ever not there. And when it's there, it gives us the opportunity to use it as a datum. And you can use it as a datum in your day-to-day life, so that you're always present. You always have the power of the present moment there. This power of truth and beauty. It is possible to cultivate that and to have it there so that you can see the conditions of your day-to-day life as they come and go. You can see those conditions from the reality of where they begin and where they end, right in the heart of this present moment. So I trust you all got a taste of that stillness, and also I hope that it's still there with you now, just as you're listening to me now, and now that you're seeing, because this is really a good opportunity just to see how your senses, all of your senses work and come out of that still consciousness, the still consciousness of mind. You can notice now that the seeing consciousness is back. How the seeing consciousness goes out to contact the object that it's looking at and then goes round and round. Just the consciousness of all of that. Of seeing, and of course of listening, the hearing, you could really understand and hear that even right through the meditation. If you were watching the stillness, you could see how those conditions come and go. The hearing quality, the consciousness of hearing comes and goes in the stillness. And of course it's the same with all of the senses, with the smelling, the way that we smell, and the way that we taste, the way that we touch and feel things. It's all part of this present moment, part of the stillness of the mind. And indeed, in the deeper realms of meditation, when you can maybe get on a retreat and perhaps be with Ajahn Brahm, where he's able to sort of talk and teach you about jhanas and the way that we can go deep enough even to just drop the body off. And you will notice that that still consciousness is just right there. It really is like the matrix of the mind, the boundary of the mind, right there in the heart of the present moment. Very powerful, but also containing all of the conditions that begin and they end in the same place, in this present moment, beginning and ending. And I don't know, Stephen, just if the camera is directly onto me this way. At the moment, I would just like to just point out, just to give an illustration really, of just the stream of consciousness as it moves through like this. And you can just start to notice yourself just with just a breath. It's sort of relatively quick, it's certainly much more, there's much more aggregation to a breath, of course, than just the iteration of pure consciousness. But pure consciousness is very, very fast. When you start to intuit and see the iteration of the still consciousness, that is very fast. But a breath, you can see, a breath just begins and it ends. So just maybe a little thing like that, beginning and ending. But then you can maybe think about a day. Begins and it ends. A day begins and it ends. And it's all in the stream of consciousness as it's going through. And then maybe a year begins and it ends. A little bit more time, and there's a lot more conditioning that's sort of gone into the process for a whole year. But then maybe we can look at, from there, we can look at a life. A life begins and it ends. All in the same stream of consciousness. And the stream of consciousness, of course, that still consciousness is really, or the stillness that's containing all of the conditions, the stillness that is holding our story. That's still consciousness. Is there all of the time. So, beginning of a life and the ending of a life. And indeed these conditions, it's interesting to look at them because they do work at scales, at different scales, from very, very small and very, perhaps even more simple. But then as the aggregations get a little bit more complex and complicated and they start interacting, and you get all of this paradoxical behaviour that we see and we experience in the world. But all of that is really, again, just aggregated into the way that we name and that we kind of develop these things. So when the Buddha was even asked about a universe, or maybe I should just go back to even say consciousness, because the monks asked him, back in his day, they asked him, where does this consciousness begin? Where does it begin? And the Buddha replied, he said he'd been back over 24 kalpas, 24 universal cycles. So this is not only just just a year or a breath, but a length of time that is a universe, a universal time. Now we're sort of 14,000 million years into this universal cycle, but the Buddha talked about seeing back over multiple universes. So you can imagine you've got, a breath here, and you've got a day here, and maybe a year, and maybe a life. But then you think about a universe. It's a huge condition that's there. So all of these conditions, this conditioning is there, just all, And the mystery and the paradox of it is that it all begins and ends in the present moment. This present moment. It's certainly a different way to see things, isn't it? It's a way that the Buddha said that we should try and develop to see things, to develop the right view of the way things are, so that we don't get bound up so much into the conditions of our lives and our views and opinions, because all those are just things that come and go. They're just beginning and ending. Conditions that come about because of the way things are, and eventually come to an end, but only to be conditioned again. And you can watch this process, even with you're watching your breath. Just watch your breath. It comes in and then goes out. And then the next breath, the out breath conditions the in breath. So in it comes again, and then breath comes in, and then it conditions the out breath. So there's always this process of happening, and the same with your lives, with past lives, with universes. We start to see how Ajahn Brahmali is very good on this, talking about the dependent origination, how this dependency comes about. But it's all there for us to see right in this heart of the present moment, right in the heart, right now, right here and now. In the present moment, we can begin to see all of this. As we listen to ourselves, we start to listen to ourselves and look deeply inside to understand, to try and understand and see just who it is that we are, how all of this works. And the other thing with all of that too is that it works very much in with the Four Noble Truths, because all these conditions, of course, the Buddha talked about them all as being dukkha. Dukkha is, it's a really useful thing to try and understand, I think, because there is just so much suffering in this world, isn't there? Sometimes it's a very painful world to be in. Sometimes it can be joyous and happy too. I certainly can see that, but there is also, though, a lot of pain and anguish that we're dealing with all of the time. And that's because of the dual nature of the way that this world is. You can't really bring anything into existence without that opposite being there, really. Because if you want to think about happiness, there's always the sadness that sort of follows it up. You want to think about light, there's dark. There's this world of duality that we sort of live in, the way that we construct and perceive and then feel into the way that the universe is. It's always sort of caught up into this tension, this fight that's going on all of the time between these conditions as we work to try and understand them. So, seeing the dukkha and understanding why the Buddha, it always astonishes me to think about this, why the Buddha made that the first noble truth. The very first thing that he ever talked about was dukkha. You think, crikey, it's a bit out there, really, isn't it? Talk about the suffering, the suffering of the world. But then the second noble truth he talked about is how all this begins, these conditions begin. That's the second noble truth. And we can see that in this meditation, can't we? Just see it in the breath beginning. Second noble truth. And then the third noble truth is that all these conditions will come to an end. They do come to an end. That's the third noble truth. So we can see all of this in the teachings, the way the Buddha set it out in such a beautiful and structured way. Able to see all of these things, and we can see it all just right in the present moment when we're looking deeply into the stillness of our mind. and just allowing that when we can allow the clarity of that stillness to penetrate deeply and allow our intuition, the knowing that comes about from that, can really start to sort of see all of that. So it is starting to come up to time again, and I just wanted to once again just mention that the care group line is open still, and it's open this time. It's open on Wednesday nights, Thursday nights and Saturday nights between 6:30 and 9 o'clock Western Australian Standard Time. So at any of those times you can call in and there will be someone on the phone to listen to you, to just talk over things with you, to be able to just hear whatever it is you'd like to talk about. So the telephone number again is 6270 4671, and the area code, of course, for WA is 08. So it's 08 6270 4671. So Wednesdays, Thursdays and Friday nights from 6:30 till 9 p.m. So you can call there at any time. At the moment here in WA, we're still caught up in the aftermath of a little COVID lockdown that we've been in for the last week was a full lockdown. This week we're sort of starting to move out of it now because we're lucky enough to not have it too bad just at the present moment. Hopefully it doesn't get any better, any worse here. It's been really quite wonderful the way we in Western Australia have been able to sort of live our lives without too much interference from the COVID. This has been a bit of a shock for the last couple of weeks, having to wear a mask in, and everybody here in the room now is wearing a mask. But hopefully that might be alleviated by Friday night, by the time Friday comes, Friday evening. I think Ajahn Brahm will be back this Friday night to give the talk. And also I'll just let you know too that on Saturday night there's a concert here at the Buddhist Society of Western Australia, something that one of our community coordinators is organising. I'm not sure if it's warm, it might be outside, but if it's a bit inclement, it'll certainly be in here. But we've got this man called Roo, who is coming to give a little concert on his guitar. He has the most beautiful voice, and it will be a concert that celebrates songs of metta, so songs of love and deep feeling. I have heard this man. He's been once or twice before to give us a concert here, and it's been very lovely to hear him. So that'll be Saturday night, I think at around 7 o'clock. There will be some food here, but if you'd like to bring a plate too, I'm sure that would be very much appreciated. So I'll leave my comments there and invite you all to join us over in the Vihara there, where I know that there's a few goodies that have been set out. And I thank you for your patient listening, and we'll see you again next Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. If you'd like to pay respects to the Buddha, Dharma and the Sangha, please feel free to do so.